we have principles, and our seventh principle is that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. And it's a very interesting topic because people are going through a really, really hard time right now, mentally, emotionally, the insecurity of where we're at and what's happening and what's going to happen next. All right? We have a younger generation that has been unplugged from its roots and ultimately is being captivated by outside things. And our own choices are being blurred as far as what we can or can't do. I love collecting things from the internet. Anybody else? You have a choice each and every single day. I choose to feel blessed. I choose to feel grateful. I choose to be excited. I choose to be thankful. I choose to be happy. Now, I recently had to deal with somebody who was in a very deep depression. And one of the things that I found is they were using that depression as a means to abuse themselves. And it seems like it's a very strange thing that somebody would do that. But if that's what you think you're worth, that's where you're going to go. There is a mental hospital where the people were in such despair that the counselor, the psychiatrist that ran the hospital, knew that he couldn't deal with them one-on-one. So he gave them a prescription. Every day they had to stare in the mirror for 15 minutes. Just stare at themselves. And once they got comfortable staring in the mirror, they had to say something nice about themselves, something they appreciated about themselves. And what they found is after a period of time that ultimately people started getting better, which goes into you have a choice each and every day. You can choose to let the denseness of this world control you. You can choose to let outside influences control you. Or you can go back and look at how is your self-talk? What are the things that you hear about yourself? There was a point in my life where life got so tough that I actually had a 9th grade education, I had 2 kids to support, and an ex who had taken every single dime that had been saved for a house. And I was left with nothing. Now, I grew up in dysfunction junction. I always say my father was the mayor, my mother was the treasurer, my mother wanted his job. So there came a point where I'm standing there with a 9th grade education and 2 kids to support, and the whole world just crashed in on me. All the injustice, all the unfairness. And I cried. I cried for 3 days. As God is my judge, the 3rd day I thought I was losing my mind. So I literally called up the suicide hotline. They put me on hold and then disconnected me. And I really started to cry because I thought they were supposed to care. All of a sudden I heard this voice, and I heard it crystal clear. It said, "They're sleeping." And it shook me out of all that sadness. I heard it again. She said, "They're sleeping. Who's hurting you now?" It wasn't a warm, fuzzy, "you poor thing, I'm sorry you're feeling down." It was, "let's knock this off." So that ultimately I pulled out of all that sadness and I realized I had given my life over to people who weren't there and who didn't care that my kids weren't eating and that I couldn't take care of myself. They didn't care because it wasn't on their radar for them to care. And at that point, I decided I was never going to give my power to anybody else ever again. Now, finding a balance where how do you not give your power without being controlling yourself? It's a really difficult journey to understand. But we have choices every single day. Anything that you think you have done in the past isn't here today. Every second is called the present because it is a present. That means that you get to sit and analyze, what do I do next? Where do I go now? And I pulled myself together and back to school, got my equivalency, and went to college. And I literally, purposefully, but I also found that along the way, you stumble, you fall. You think somebody's saying something to you that they're not. How many times have you said something to somebody and they took it the wrong way? Heard it the wrong way. And the reason why they hear it that way is because they're listening from their own pain. They're listening from their own story, not yours. Language is one of the most amazing things because I've traveled throughout the United States. The only two states I haven't been to is Alaska and Hawaii. But in the process, you go anywhere and verbiage, language is different. What they've assigned to language is different. So when you speak, they're listening from their own reality, not yours. I had a girlfriend at one time. She has 2 master's degrees. She was raising 5 kids herself. And she was the major breadwinner. She had a way of speaking that she came from Lawrence. And I don't know if people know what coming from Lawrence means. Because the Dems and Does. The Dems and Does. She had a terrible time with interviews. And finally, I just had it. And I said to her, there's certain vernaculars, certain words you're choosing. When you speak that way, it dumbs you down in the interviewer's eyes. She was furious. She jumped up. She was going home. I said, wait 1 minute. Tell me what you just heard me say. She said you were so damn smart and I'm stupid. I said, no, I didn't. But knowing her family, I now know that ultimately her whole childhood, she was told to shut up and stop being stupid. So no matter how many degrees she has, no matter how smart she is, she will always refer back to shut up and stop being stupid. And the irony is I hear her saying that to other people in her own family, repeating the words that were said to her that she really hated. She really hated. How many times have you heard yourself repeat words somebody said to you and you know you didn't like it when it was said to you, and yet there you see it coming out of your mouth? That's because we repeat patterns until we become aware. And the beauty of spiritualism, it helps us to truly come to the understanding that we are divine children. The Bible starts out with that we are made in God's image. If we're made in God's image, what does that really mean? Because we know God doesn't have a body. But this body is no different than if I don equipment and go to live at the bottom of the ocean. That's all it is. It listens to us because you are the Godhead of every single cell in that body. So do you celebrate? Do you celebrate that this walks us around here? It opens us to communicate with other people. But we're sent to a place that is dense and hard to get through. I kind of like to think of it as gravity. There are some places where gravity is so intense, and other places it's not as heavy. And I'm talking here on the earth plane. It's a known fact. So that it's like anything else. Think of you when you were first born and you're trying to learn how to hold your head up. Then you try to learn how to sit up. Then you try to learn to walk. Each one of those steps, you have to compete with gravity. You have to build up the muscle that lets you do each one of those stages. But there's a point in your life where it's not about gravity against your body, but gravity against your soul. Because we walk in this world and we take it as though it's real. And all people do is give you whatever they have to give, no more and no less. You can get mad at them for it. You can be hurt by it. You can justify yourself in it. Or you can say, not my circus and not my monkeys. And I love that saying, except for they forgot to finish it. Because if it's not your circus and they're not your monkeys, that means you bought the ticket. Sit down and enjoy the show, because they will put one on. So turning things around and looking where it's coming from. Turn it around and see what they're telling you about what they're hurting over. And the irony is, if I'm in pain and I don't want to recognize that, I'm going to find a victim to take it for me. As spiritualists, we have to stop being victims of other people's reality. And it comes first by owning the one thing nobody can take away from you. What do you think that one thing that nobody can take away from you? You are an infinite child from an infinite world. You are lent here for seconds of your soul's time. Everything you think you're going through, everything you think is happening that fast. But because here we have cause and effect. In spirit, if you want something to change, you think it different, it changes. In this world, action has a reaction. It's a law of nature. Action has a reaction, a law of nature. So how does that blend into our happiness or unhappiness? I choose to be blessed. I choose to be grateful. I choose to be excited. I choose to be thankful. I choose to be happy. Those are all choices. Nobody can take those choices away from you unless you give them up. Nobody can truly hurt you unless you absorb their pain. So how do we protect ourselves and how do we deal with that? By blessing ourselves first. You know the saying, take the oxygen before you feed it to somebody else? By stopping and saying, I'm asking the divinity in me, show me a different way of this. I'm asking for the heart of God to show me this world a different way. Imagine and think what God sees. I've had some interesting experiences where I walked into a space and the denseness was so thick that I actually heard it squish like jello when I walked into it. And in that split second, when that denseness was that dense, I could hear everybody's thoughts and everybody's agenda. And it made me think, if I, in my earthly self, can hear everybody's thoughts and everybody's agenda, and do know I'm not that nosy, so I don't go running around looking. I can't tell you how many people walked up to me and say, what are you getting? I say nothing, because I'm minding my own business. It's not about invading somebody's space. But my point was that if I, in an earth body, can hear that and know in a split second every agenda the person has, how much more do they know about us? How much more do they hear in us? You were born to be a blessing. This earth tries to take you down because of the fact that they don't have it themselves. Denseness, dense people, they don't know how to connect to their God self. They're unplugged from source. They can't give you anything but what they have. So as spiritualists, we need to be grateful that we can see that. Grateful that we can understand that. But at the same time, you are not put on this earth to be God to anybody else. I do believe when Jesus said that he was the way shower, it wasn't that we should nail ourselves to a cross. It's the fact that we have within us love and compassion. That we have within us the ability. And do you know that just taking that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 15 minutes of staring at themselves actually change the chemistry in them? There are endorphins that are released in our bodies when we're having a good time, when we're happy. And it's not to say that life is ever perfect. I mean, I have said this many times. There were days in my life to go out and see a flowering flower and to see the magic that is so around in nature. And there is so much magic there. And there's so much more to understand and to learn when we stop burying ourselves in other people's pain, in other people's hearts, in other people's experience. I like the saying that was given to me, I am the best me I know how to be at this moment in time. I'm learning and I'm growing, but I am the best me I know how to be. I'm not responsible for how you feel about me. I am responsible for how I feel about me. The rest is between me and my God, and it's no one else's business. This is a journey. Everybody keeps talking as though they want this world to be a kumbaya and everybody's nice and everybody's good to you. But that's not realistic because you can't grow from that. Or as my angels have reminded me several times, If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. If you fall down, the beauty of celebrating that you know how to get up. Keep it simple. Don't borrow things that aren't yours. Help where you can, but don't be a victim to it. I choose to feel blessed. I choose to feel grateful. I choose to be excited. I choose to be thankful. I choose to be happy. As the God in me honors the grace of the God in you. Thank you.